More.
All right, Sir Bonnie, thank you. So victims advocate Wendy Murphy right here at our Beacon Hill studio. Wendy, thanks for joining us about this. Can we talk about the red zone and just explain to everybody what this is?
Yeah, I mean, it's what it sounds like. There's a high-risk period of time during the year when really bad stuff happens on campus, and theories abound about why that is so. From a sexual assault problem perspective, for me, I think it brings a lot of things together. Often it is the first time, for the freshman women especially, first time away from home without the parents around and a lot more freedom. Kids will experiment with the edges of bad behavior and render themselves vulnerable. But here's an interesting other way of thinking about it. The predatory offenders on campus, and there are lots of them out there, they are looking for the naive new girl in town who just arrived from the protection of her family's home, and they know she's going to probably try drinking, and boy, are they looking for her. Not only is she likely to be less capable of protecting herself, she trusts people. She doesn't realize really bad stuff happens on campus. Most parents don't think really bad stuff happens on campus, and that's the risk factor setting that a lot of this happens in.
And those people you talk about that would be predatory in nature, they are looking to see where these kids are on campus. They may not know their way around campus in those early weeks and trying to get back and forth, especially if they may have had a few drinks at a party. They are extremely vulnerable in that regard.
Yeah, and you know what else, Mark? It's not just about drinking, believe it or not, and we've seen this a lot more in the recent past. The drugs that are being used. Victims are often, once they have a little bit to drink, their drinks are spiked without their knowledge with the kind of drugs that not only make them incapable of controlling their bodies, but they often can't remember what happened or can't remember well. And guess what? Then if it gets reported to campus authorities or real-world cops, they say, we can't proceed with a case where you don't even know what happened. Don't drink anymore. We have to really get the word out that it isn't just about alcohol. It's about these predatory offenders taking advantage of a little bit of drinking, putting the drug right there in the drink, and then a girl doesn't know what it feels like to be drugged, so she doesn't even understand what happened. Then she tries to read the rules. Is this rape? I don't know. And by the time she recovers from the trauma and starts to remember things, the case is old and people are telling her to stay quiet and don't do anything about it. That's why it's an epidemic. There's a lot of cover-up in the nature of the beast.
Wendy, let me ask you this. So we know, because we went to college, this has really been going on for years.
Yep.
But it feels like, in recent times, is this increasing? But the reality is it really isn't. Is it that more people are just reporting it? And that's exactly the point, and that makes you happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see more high numbers as an indicator of more reporting, because that's the only way you're going to get actually low numbers over the course of time. What we've known for a long time is that the numbers, somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 victims over the course of 4 years are going to be sexually assaulted in college. That's a bigger number than your risk if you don't go to college or even if you go to the military. I mean, think about that. You're safer not getting educated if you're a female in the United States of America. It's crazy. But because of the awareness, and I love this new
the California?
No, I don't like the new California thing. We'll talk about that another time. I do like the notion of people standing up, celebrities standing up, the president using his leadership skills and saying, this is on us. It is a collective problem. It is a civil rights problem. Everyone should go to school safely.
And Wendy, you've been on with us before to talk about the role Title IX plays in this and how universities really need to get on board with that and enforce the rules, if you will.
Yeah, the thing that's great about Title IX is, number one, people used to think it had something to do with equal distribution of basketballs for girls in athletics. No. It is an anti-discrimination law. The most severe expression of discrimination is violence. Violence on campus is a civil rights injury. Therefore, when it happens, schools have a duty to respond, not just respond somewhat, equitably, promptly, and effectively, and to put in measures to stop it from happening again. Because we've just started to learn more about how this civil rights law works in education, even though it's been around for 40-something years, Now you're seeing schools step up because they're being sued, and we're filing complaints with the Office for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. We're holding schools accountable, which we should have been doing a long time ago, but that's why we're paying attention, and I think that's why we're going to see incidence rates go down.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about California then. They have this new, they're the first state in the nation to define this consent law. Yes means yes. There's a whole big ad campaign out there. The definition of consent under the bill requires, and I'm just going to read it to you, an affirmative, conscious, and voluntary agreement to engage in sexual activity. Do you think we should adopt that policy here? And realistically, do you think that's, you don't, okay?
No.
I get it. So do you think that that's going to make a difference, though?
Here's the problem with it. First and foremost, remember we just talked about Title IX as a civil rights law. Under Title IX, we don't use criminal terms like non-consent or affirmative consent or yes means yes consent. We use civil rights standards. They're much easier to prove than criminal non-consent. What do I mean? All you have to show is that the behavior was unwelcome. Unwelcome. And I decide if I felt like that was a welcome thing you did to my body. If you make me prove non-consent or even affirmative consent under these new fancy yes means yes bills, which sound good, but they're not good, really you're saying to the victim, you have to prove more than just unwelcomeness. If we mean it when we say this is a civil rights harm, we need to treat it under civil rights standards and make the burdens as low as possible when someone comes forward so they can be treated with equality and respect. Any kind of civil rights violation on campus, if I beat you up because you're black, Jewish, or female, or if I rape you because you're any of those things, you're supposed to be held accountable under civil rights standards, which are easy, low, very much, encourage people to come forward because they know it's not hard to prove. Consent in the real world criminal justice system is really hard to prove. We shouldn't be telling schools under state law codes to follow criminal law standards. Why make it more hard on victims?
I have to leave it at that. Victims advocate Wendy Murphy, always appreciate your time and insight.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Sir Bonnie, to you.
Thank you. Right now, we want to look at some of the headlines that we're following. We do now know the names of the victims in Sunday's deadly skydiving accident out on the Cape.